episode of Jason Talks About. And on this episode, we are going to be talking about WWE Raw from March 31st, 2025, and Smackdown from April 4th, 2025. I'm your host, Jason Medeiros, and welcome to the show. That music you heard at the top is Reality 508. Find them where you find music, and find me where you find social media at Jason Talks About in most places. And let's get into the week of WWE. But before we do, please hit that like and subscribe button if you have not yet. We'd really appreciate that. And you can hit the bell there for the alerts so that you'll know when the new episodes are uploaded. I appreciate all your support. Okay, WWE Raw. They were in London. And John Cena kicks off the show. He's going to do a promo in the ring. And he comes out and right away the crowd is doing the John Cena sucks sing-along. And he gets in the ring and he goes to grab the mic and talk, and boom, Cody Rhodes music. He interrupts immediately. John Cena doesn't even get to speak. And they do the big sing-along for Cody Rhodes, and they're doing the Cody Rhodes, Cody, whatever chant they do over there in the UK. And and he goes into this promo about, I guess, kind of trying to get ahead of Cena, like, what is it that you can say about me that hasn't been said, And he even at one point mentioned how he was booed in his own company, the company he created, AEW. He didn't say the words AEW. I don't think they can, but there's an allusion to it. Then we had the "Let's Go Cena, Cena sucks" chants, and Cody made a reference to, it's a shame, I guess Superman really is dead. Speaking about Cena, that Cena really is, I guess, turned to the dark side. And he tells Cena, "I want you to tell them why," talking about the crowd. "Tell them why you sold out." And Cena says he's not going to punch down and explain, things to the fans. And Cena talks about how he's going to bury Cody because he buries mediocrity. And I'm just hitting the main points here, folks. I'm not going to be able to do this whole thing justice. It was pretty long. Cena also talks about how Cody's rode the coattails of his success. And Cena tells Cody that he's too rehearsed, and all he is a catchy song and an entrance, and he's a paint-by-number Nepo baby. And Cena says how he's going to be the last real champion when he retires, and how he was the last real champion of this company, and that got cheers from the crowd. He also tells Cody that Cody's an errand boy that got lucky, and there was actually Cena chants after this. So a lot of these people appreciated John Cena, what he had to say. So then Cody said something about, yeah, I was chosen, but the difference is they chose me. And that actually got some boos. And he said one guy chose you, a guy that we don't talk about anymore. He calls Cena, he basically tells Cena, "You're the company creation, if anybody is." And something about, it got bleeped out, but I think what he said is, "You got more dick in your promo than you do in your jorts." And he said, "Oh, you gave me such a softball. You threw me talking about the fans because you created the disenfranchised fans." And he said, "Which one of us sold out to The Rock?" And then, that got big "you sold out" chants. And Cody says, this was the confusing part. He says to Cena, "You're still my hero, but you're also a piece of shit." Cena talks about how he had to work 100 times harder to be on top, and he was never protected from the crowd, and no one's been worthy enough to put him down. He said, "You had to leave to be relevant, and at my best, you still can't wipe my ass." And he said the big line everybody's talking about, "I make empires for billionaires and you just take money from their kids." Obvious shot at Tony Khan or whatever. And then as he's going to drop the mic and walk out, Cody says, "You know what? They've never changed me. And one thing that they've never done was chant at me that you can't wrestle." And that kind of got Cena mad, so he kind of gets back in the ring, smirks a little bit, goes for the cheap shot, takes a swing, misses. Cody catches him at the crossroads and lays out Cena. And they did their Cody Rhodes singing of his name. The crowd did, and Cody left, and Cena was left laying. All right, next thing we had on the show was the New Day wanted a match because they want the War Raiders at WrestleMania, but Pierce is saying if you want a title shot, you're gonna earn it. So then Pierce comes out, and it's the big surprise team they're gonna face. It's Tyler Bate and Pete Dunne, the New Catch Republic. And they got a pretty mild reaction. I think this was supposed to be a big holy shit moment because they're both from, the UK or whatever. And I think they were expecting a gigantic... It reminds me of the Pretty Deadly thing when they were like practically begging for cheers from the crowd. And it was just like an okay, normal, mild house show reaction. It's kind of the same thing happened here. I've always said WWE is kind of masterful at kind of making us think we're hearing or seeing something we're not, and the announcers were trying to hype up like, my God, the hometown guys and whatever, and it just wasn't catching. Anyway, the New Day won, and on their way back, Kathy Kelly stopped them in the IOA, and they said they demand their shot, and the War Raiders came out, and they had a big face-off, and I guess we're going to have the match. Okay, then we had Gunther versus Jimmy Uso. This was probably the best thing on the show, I would say, in terms of just Gunther. I just like the way he upped the violence here. So Gunther versus Jimmy Uso. They had a back and forth match. Nothing wrong with it. Gunther, I think, is always good. Gunther ended up taking control and gave Jimmy the power bomb and could have pinned him, but he picked his head up at 2. And this bloodthirsty crowd was chanting one more time. So then he hit Jimmy with a big clothesline, and then he broke the count again, and the referee's getting on him about, picking him up at the 2 count. And eventually he slaps the sleeper on and wins. But then Gunther slapped the sleeper on again after the bell, and that got Jey Uso out for the save. And Gunther looked like he kind of ran away through the crowd. And then when Jey went to go check on Jimmy, who still laid out, Gunther attacked both of them from behind. He dumped them out of the ring. He threw Jey into the stairs. He beat up the security that was trying to break up the whole thing. And then he zip ties Jey to the ropes. And then he gets back in the ring. He's got the belt. He hits Jimmy Uso in the face with the belt. And actually Jimmy ended up busted open, which we don't see often in WWE. So again, it means a lot more. I've talked about this on my AEW reviews. And he slaps Jimmy in the sleeper just out of reach of Jey Uso. And the officials and Adam Pearce all run in there and try to stop it. And, eventually pull Gunther off. And Gunther's got blood all over him. And Jimmy's bleeding all over the place. And, Jey is all distraught because he can't get to his brother because he's zip-tied. And I thought it was a good segment. It's definitely adding some fuel to, I think, a match that desperately needs some fire. That's coming up at WrestleMania. Okay, so then we had Braun Breaker and Penta against Finn and Dominic Mysterio from Judgment Day. I noticed that Penta and Braun were shaking hands before the match. I think Braun Breaker is probably officially in babyface territory now. I guess there was no definitive turn, but he's been against heels and he's shaking hands with babyfaces, so I'm gonna assume now that that's where he is, on that side of the fence. I did write it down that I think the new Judgment Day music sucks. They had a really great theme, I thought, and this isn't good. And it's a complaint about a lot of WWE guys' music lately. Notable in this match that Penta suffered his first pinfall loss. Finn Balor hit him with the coup de grace and pinned him, and this happened after Braun Breaker had speared Penta by accident. So more to come in that after, when we're in the back. And we see Kathy Kelly interviewing Braun Breaker, and Penta interrupts and jumps in his face, and Braun's trying to say it was an accident, and Penta's yelling at him and kind of in half English, half Spanish. And so more intrigue going into WrestleMania. The rumor is it's going to be a 4-way match, Finn, Dom, and these two. I would rather see Braun Breaker in a 1-on-1 match, but this is what we're probably going to get, I guess. AJ Styles was in an in-ring promo. Speaking of a match heading into WrestleMania that needs some juice, I mean, it's, I guess someone just thought, hey, good match, AJ versus Logan Paul. It's kind of a weird, like, I don't even know what the reason is that they're fighting, but anyway, he's in the ring, he's doing a promo, it's talking about Logan Paul and big time AJ Styles chants. That was nice to hear. And he says, Logan, you were supposed to call me out, but I haven't heard from you, so I'm calling you out. And then Logan comes out, and he's getting the Dominic Mysterio treatment. Like, he can't even talk. He's getting booed so heavily. Basically, they went back and forth. It was, I thought, a little too long again with the talking. It's been a problem with WWE lately. And Logan tried to take a cheap shot. AJ Styles caught him. They brawled, and AJ had the upper hand. They brawled outside the ring, but then when AJ rolled Logan in the ring and went to come through the second rope, Logan crotched him by pulling up the second rope, and he hit him with what they call the pulverizer finishing move and laid out AJ. And so I guess we're getting this at WrestleMania. I think it'll be a good match. I mean, AJ Styles almost never disappoints, and Logan Paul's a freak athlete, and I just think it's a lot of the WrestleMania build to me this year feels kind of forced. Like, we just wanted this match to happen, so we're just kind of pushing it in that direction. And it just doesn't feel too organic to me, a lot of this WrestleMania coming up. And then we had the Women's Championship with Bianca Belair was the special ref, and it was Rhea Ripley versus Io Sky, who's the champion, and Rhea wants her belt back. And basically more of the thing of Bianca's the one getting booed, but she's the one who logically has a point. If we just quick history lesson, Rhea Ripley, fair and square, lost the title the night after the Elimination Chamber. Bianca Belair earned the shot at WrestleMania by winning the Elimination Chamber, and Rhea Ripley, who's supposed to be the big baby face in the situation, has done nothing but whine and complain about how she should be in the match and forcing herself in the match. So, long story short, things, as you can probably predict, went south in this if you haven't watched it. And Rhea ended up actually hitting Bianca, which I thought should have been an instant disqualification. But then Io went for a drop kick off the top, and she hit Bianca, which I thought might have been by accident, storyline wise. And Bianca went to the announce area there and said, "I'm done, double disqualification." Boom. Rhea attacked Bianca out on the outside of the ring. Io dives on both of them. Bianca's getting booed every time she has some comeback offense here. The whole thing just kind of ended with Rhea beating up both women and then giving Bianca the riptide off the second rope. So I think this is pretty predictable. There was no winner. It's going to be the triple threat that we all thought it was going to be. I just think they've made the Rhea Ripley character look like a fool in this whole thing. And I mean, the fans are going to cheer no matter what. She's super over. But I just feel like if you're sitting there at home and you're just watching the story unfold, you're like, what is her problem? She seems like the bad guy to me. Okay, so let's head on over to Smackdown. That was on April 4th, and they're in Chicago. And before anything is even said, as far as, who's coming out or theme music or anything, the crowd is already chanting for CM Punk super heavily. And we get the Punk entrance, the huge sing-along. Of course, he's mega over. They're in Chicago. He gets in the ring. He starts to cut his promo. He says, they told me the best audiences were overseas. And then he takes the camera from the cameraman and he's like panning the crowd in Chicago. They're going nuts. He mocks the whole Rock Goosebumps thing, hitting his arm with a little smile on his face. I'm just going to cover the main points here. He talks about WrestleMania, big "you deserve it" chants. And he says, I appreciate you saying I deserve it, but I earned it. And then in the middle of his big love fest with the fans, we hear, "Ladies and gentlemen," because here comes Paul Heyman. So he does his whole intro he always does, and he comes to the ring, and he says, may I come into the ring? And of course, CM Punk says yes. And, Heyman goes into how they're best friends. He's best friends with the best in the world. And there's this big ECW chants. I kind of laughed because Heyman was kind of blown up trying to talk, even though he just kind of walked briskly to the ring. Heyman went into the whole history about War Games and how CM Punk saved the family and he knows he owes him the favor. So he says, I have one more favor to ask you. And Punk says, okay. And he says, please tell me the favor. So his favor is, he's asking a Punk is to please tell him what the favor is he owes him, basically. Because Roman's pissed at him. And Roman wants to, and I got to tell you, Roman Reigns, with these interactions and the interactions around him, is feeling more heelish again. And I got to tell you, I'm here for it. I really think, in my opinion, Roman should be a heel again. But anyway, Heyman's kind of scared. He says, have you seen these Samoans when they're mad or whatever? And Punk says, is he here yet? And then Heyman says, well, no, he's not here yet. And then Punk says, okay, well, I'd rather tell him to his face. So Punk's not going to tell us what the favor is until he can tell Roman. Okay, so the next thing we had was the Rey Fenix debut. Interesting. He's debuting on Smackdown, like I said in my earlier, my prior review on this. I guess they're going to just keep them apart for a little bit, and then we'll have the big Lucha Brothers reunification or whatever. And he fought Nathan Frazier from NXT. Apparently, I don't really cover NXT, but I that's where he's from. I think he's one half of the tag team champions. I wrote down that Phoenix looks like he's in really good shape. I've noticed that there is a higher standard in WWE. People just look in better shape and more professional, in my opinion. And Phoenix looks like he definitely tightened up his body and got himself in some real good shape. I was a little surprised at this match, just a little bit, because it was kind of competitive. And usually it's like when a guy debuts, he kind of gets a at least semi-easy win, but it was still a good match. Phoenix won with the Mexican Muscle Buster, which was basically the Muscle Buster Samoa Joe does, but I guess it's a Mexican instead of a Samoan. They don't call Joe's the Samoan Muscle Buster, but okay, whatever. Phoenix wins, Byron gets in the ring, and Phoenix is fired up, and he's saying, Gracias, Chicago, and he waited his whole life to say, I'm WWE, and big pop. The crowd was really into him, and so Penta and Phoenix, I think, are probably printing money at this point for WWE, and it's going to be even bigger when they get back together. I believe. Okay, so Escobar is watching in the back, and he's mad at Los Garza, and Berto is saying he's better than Phoenix, and he could prove it, and Escobar says he's going to go talk to Aldis and make that happen. Excuse me. Drew McIntyre, they did a pre-taped interview. He's got a patch on his eye, and he's talking about the whole history of how Damian Priest has screwed him over, and now he got glass in his eye, and puts over their WrestleMania match. And then we had LA Knight versus Tonga Loa, and LA Knight won that match. Not much to say there. Solo tried to interfere and was thwarted, and was kind of pissed off after the match. And then Byron was in the back, and he's over there going up to Paul Heyman, and Heyman's still waiting for Roman, and Heyman basically looks at the camera and says, and you can kind of tell they're setting up a problem here for Heyman, and he says, Punk, please listen, CM Punk, I know you're watching, I know you're listening. The answer is yes. The answer to the favor is yes. And he's kind of rushing and panicking because he sees an SUV pulling up, and lo and behold, it's not Roman, it's Seth, who comes out laughing and ha ha ha, and hey, the favor affects me too, and I'll be there tonight. I wouldn't miss this for the world. So he's gonna be in the ring now. So now it's even more interesting. It's gonna be a fun segment, Now this was probably the talk of the internet as of this recording. The Charlotte Flair and Tiffy Stratton face off. Wade Barrett was the host. I think he asked one question. And so Charlotte comes out, heavily booed. Tiffany Stratton comes out, way over. Charlotte could barely speak through this whole thing. Every time she tried to talk, again, it was like the Dominic treatment. Probably worse, I would say. It was like the Logan Paul level where you can't even hear. But basically, Wade Barrett says, Charlotte, why did you choose Tiffy when you won the Royal Rumble? It says, she was practically begging me, and I'm doing this for charity, and Tiffy comes back and says, who your biggest competitor is? Them, referring to the crowd. And she refers to how Charlotte Flair was crying on a talk show about her divorce of Andrade. and says, you'll always be second to your daddy Ric Flair. And Charlotte, said what I think a lot of us were thinking, like, what do you think, you're the first opponent to bring up my dad? I mean, I think that's the lowest of hanging fruit, honestly. I know a lot of people were in Tiffy's corner and like, ooh, she got in her shot about, yeah, but I mean, that's just so played out, just saying, hey, your dad's Ric Flair. I mean, it's, in my opinion. I'm not crapping on Tiffany Stratton. I like her, but I don't know what was going on here. There's reports that it went off script. It was not good. There was huge Tiffy time chants. And you could tell the boos were really getting to Charlotte. She didn't say much, and eventually she just said, you know what, why don't you have the last word? And Tiffany says that, Charlotte, look at me at 25. Where were you at 25? You were trying to be a volleyball player and drinking in your dad's basement. And then she said, outside of this ring, you ain't the queen of shit. And you're the least favorite Nepo baby in the whole company. And Charlotte corrects her and says, Nepo queen. Now, this was the interesting part, because let's remember, Tiffy's the babyface, Charlotte's the heel. She made a comment about, when this is all over, y'all going to lose and y'all going to be just like you are outside of the ring. Y'all going to be all alone. What are you, 0-3? Referring to her marriages. But here's the thing. She quickly rolls out of the ring as Charlotte walks towards her, which tells me something was up, because why would the babyface take a jab and then powder? So I think something was up here. And quickly Charlotte says, why is Kaiser in my DMs? Which, that's ridiculous. I don't think he's in her DMs, but whatever. I mean, I guess they're trying to spice this up. I don't know who went off script. I don't know if it was meant to look like they went off script, but it was very awkward. And Charlotte has a big problem because, man, have the fans just decided to despise her. All right, so then we had a number one contenders match with DIY versus the Machine Guns. And the Machine Guns won. The Street Profits were watching in the audience for some reason, in the crowd, and they had a little face-off back and forth. So they're going to fight. I'm actually not even sure. Smackdown is so long, and I apologize. I kind of breezed through some of it. I think this means they're going to fight at WrestleMania. I'm not sure. But, I mean, the same few teams have interacted so much, especially on SmackDown, which is so long right now, that, I kind of gloss over some of that. Naomi fought B-Fab, and Jade jumped Naomi as she's making her entrance, and the security stopped Jade, and then the announce team made a point to say B-Fab has been on, so she was on top early in this match, and the announce team made a point to say how she's been training in the dungeon with Natalya, and I'm assuming Tyson Kidd. She does look like she's making steady improvement, but Naomi got the win, and I thought this really made B-Fab look like shit, because Jade jumped Naomi ahead of time, so the excuse was built in for B-Fab to steal a win here. I'm not saying it's time for B-Fab to be the world champion, but it would have been a nice little get back, because, Liv Morgan pinned Jade thanks to Naomi, so I thought it would have been a little bit better story, and we could have maybe gave B-Fab a little momentum to, I don't know, head into something else, or maybe her and Naomi have a grudge match next week. But whatever the case, she lost. She looked like shit because she's the babyface. The heel was hurt prior, and she still lost to her. So Naomi wins. She gets in the mic. She calls out Jade. Jade gets in the ring, gives her the big boot to the face. They have a big fight. The security, pulls Jade away, and then Aldis comes out and says they're having a match at WrestleMania 1-on-1. Okay, and then we had Damian Priest had a pre-tape, and now he's firing back at Drew McIntyre and saying, you're always the victim, you're a hypocrite, and you're a crybaby, and all that good stuff. Basically, all the fan favorites have been saying about McIntyre. Putting over their match at WrestleMania. This next segment I found very intriguing. It was Kevin Owens came out. He's in the ring with, it was an in-ring segment, and Aldis kind of spilled the beans a little bit because he said something about, this is the part of the job that I don't like and whatever, and KO comes in the ring and talks about how he may not wrestle again. He has a neck injury that needs surgery, and he thanks the fans. He says he's sorry to the fans. He hugs Aldis. Thank you, Kevin chants. and Randy Orton's music hits, and there's a big sing-along, and Kevin Owens at this point was standing on the apron because he was ready to leave the ring, and when Orton made his way down to the ring and up the stairs and onto the apron, kind of just exchanged a kind of a stare at him and said something, and the announcers kind of alluded that it might have been just kind of a nod, like we have our differences, but, I guess Randy Orton isn't wishing bad on him if he needs neck surgery and his career could be over. I noticed as KO was leaving, there was a bad interaction with a fan because he was kind of, the in-character moment was he was kind of dejectedly walking to the back, kind of sad, because of what just got announced. And I noticed him suddenly snap out of that and head right to the barricade and say something about, like, what did you just say? Or something to that effect. And you could tell there was a problem, and the camera just quickly cut away from all that. So I don't know what's going on, but there's been some reports lately about fans, just being inappropriate and stuff and crossing the line with some of the superstars. And so anyway, it looks like that happened. And so there's a lot to unpack in this segment. I'm going to get to all of it. So now Randy's in the ring and KO's gone, and there's big time Randy chants, and Aldis says, I'm sorry, Randy, but this means you don't have a match at WrestleMania. And then Randy RKO's Nick Aldis. So a lot to unpack here. Number one, it seems like Kevin Owens is legit hurt. Number two, Randy Orton, so a lot of people speculating, is Nick Aldis going to wrestle? I'm also reading that maybe this could be the Aleister Black return match to fight Randy. So there's a lot of different kind of ways they can go with Randy here at WrestleMania. The other thing I take out of this is what a story they'll have on their hands if KO is in fact, I do believe he's injured, and I hope it's not true that he's done with, because I know he just signed a big 5-year contract. So, but let's just say he does come back in a year or whatever, right? And he's able to. What a story he has, because now they could play the angle of Cody Rhodes powerbombed him on that ladder, and Sami Zayn did nothing to prevent that. There's a million ways you can go with that. You could go with Sami Zayn realizes, oh my God, look what happened to my friend Kevin. He was right, and he turns heel. Or Kevin Owens has more reason to reignite with Sami Zayn. I don't know. There's just a lot of ways you can go. And then there's the whole angle of what's going on with Randy. So, all right, SmackDown is long. There's still more to come. There was a last man standing match. Jacob Fatu versus Braun Strowman. Too many Brauns. And this is for the number one contendership for the U.S. title against LA Knight at WrestleMania. I'm not going to cover this pound for pound. It was brutal. It was hard hitting. I like watching these two guys go at it. It was just good old fashioned two huge monsters just colliding. It got a bunch of "This is awesome" chants and all kind of crowd interaction. I noticed that Braun Strowman seemed to be noticeably limping more than usual. I don't know this for a fact, but I think I've read something about there could be nerve damage, and I don't know if it's in his left leg or not, but you can see he moves a little off to me on one side or the other, and it seemed more pronounced. So it's possible he was hurt because they were doing a lot of physical stuff on the outside of the ring, going through tables, going off of stuff, and but anyway, Fatu won with back in the ring. He did the hip attack through a table, and he won. So Fatu goes on to WrestleMania for the U.S. belt. Okay, so here we go. The end segment. Roman, and this is a long one. Roman arrives. Heyman's still waiting there. And he's like, oh, my tribal chief. And Roman just walks right past him and ignores him. The camera follows him. He goes right through the arena, all the way through Gorilla, boom, into the crowd. His music hit. I mean, not the crowd, but the entranceway. Music hits. Crowd goes nuts. And Heyman's just kind of trailing him. OTC chants. He says for Chicago to acknowledge me. And then he finally, without even looking at Heyman, says, "Wise man, is he here?" And Wise man and Paul Heyman says, "Yes." There's huge Punk chants. And he says, "Did he reveal the favor?" And Paul Heyman says no. And he says, Roman says, here's a little secret. CM Punk wouldn't be back if it wasn't for me. he definitely would not be in the main event of WrestleMania if it wasn't for me. And then he started to mock Chicago. So this is what I'm talking about with the heelish Roman Reigns, and I'm here for it. So I had to say, like, oh, I know you're all, oh, CM Punk, you're cheering for CM because he's one of you, and you people don't get it, and, so then he calls out Punk, and he says, I want to know what this favor is. So just as he calls out Punk, boom, Seth Rollins music instead. Seth Rollins comes out, he's dancing, he's laughing, he gets him, he says, I wouldn't miss this for the world, and he just kind of has his palms up, like his hands back, like saying, hey, I'm not here to fight, I want to watch this. And the whole crowd, there's a chant, what's the favor? So big time Punk chants, and then they did the Roman Reigns singing like the UK crowds do. And then boom, here comes Cult of Personality, huge sing-along, Punk's entrance. Punk gets in the ring, and he reveals that the favor that he wants from Paul Heyman is that he's going to be in his corner at WrestleMania, not Roman's. And holy shit chants, and Seth laughing, I told you, ha ha ha, Seth's laughing, the crowd's into it. Roman laughs, and he's like, he loves me, right? He needs me. He wouldn't. And he's like, wise man, let this clown down easy. Let him know, and big CM Punk chants, and all of a sudden Roman looks over, and Heyman is crying. And Roman tells him, tell him no. I took you in, you tell him no. Now he's getting aggravated with Heyman. And Heyman says, no, my tribal chief, I can't. And then he grabs, Roman that is, grabs Heyman by the collar in a threatening way and kind of pushes him into the turnbuckle. And you can hear Heyman saying, I gave my word, I gave my word. And that's all Punk needed to see. And he attacks Roman Reigns from behind, gives him the GTS. And as we're going off the air, he turns around quick to see what Rollins is up to, and Rollins is just staring him down, and Roman's laid out, and Heyman is on the ring apron, on his knees, peering through the second rope, crying and saying, no, no, and Seth and Punk have the stare down, and we go off the air, and lots of intrigue with that. So I will say that it's a match I was not originally in favor of. I kind of would rather see these guys doing something different. But this whole Heyman twist adds another intrigue. My prediction, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I think Heyman betrays Punk at this point and breaks his word and shows true allegiance to the tribal chief, Roman Reigns. And Roman Reigns reunites with Solo and Tonga and probably the incoming Hikuleo, because what are those guys doing anyway now? And then I think they try to coax Jacob Fatu to go with them, and he's not hearing that. And now you're setting up Jacob Fatu against the other Bloodline members. It also sets the stage for possibly down the road the Usos and Jacob Fatu against that version of the Bloodline. And I think there's definitely money in Fatu versus Roman. So there's so many things going on. And WWE has been on fire with most things related to the Bloodline. It simmered down for a while, I admit, with Roman being gone and after he lost the belt and all that. But there's still so many ways they can go with this. And I'm a lot more intrigued now in this triple threat match. I mean, it was always going to be a good match. I like all three guys. I think most people do, but this made it much better to me. And I do think, in my opinion, WWE's been kind of limping into some of these storylines with WrestleMania. I mean, they're so over and they're so hot right now, and everything, business is booming, that it doesn't even matter. They're kind of playing with house money, I guess. But I do feel like things heated up with the WrestleMania storylines this week. I will say, too much talking, and as much as I love the ruckus crowds, it just made for like some long, drawn-out TV. So my opinion on WWE this week was, I thought it was a good week, but the shows need some more action to me. It's a lot of talking and a lot of just crowd chanting, and I think I need a little more action. That's not to say hasn't been good, and some of the storylines definitely have been, but I think now that they're back from the UK, I think we need to amp things up a little bit. There's only a couple of weeks before WrestleMania, and I want to see a little more action. I'm not saying everybody should be brawling every week and bleeding or anything, but I do think they did a better job furthering storylines and adding fuel to the fire to the WrestleMania storylines than they have been for weeks. I thought it's been a little stagnant in my opinion. But That's just my thoughts. All right. Well, thank you. If you've stuck out the show, please, like I said, if you haven't given us a like and a subscribe, and signed up for alerts, please do so. And I appreciate all of you that are with me. And I will catch you all next time.